with demand expected to come back, the question remains, does this mean the economy is back on track?
Companies now, after experimenting with offshore in places like India, Philippines, and Poland, want to bring those jobs back.
We invest in the U.S. We're the biggest exporter in the country. In the cycle we're in right now, we're creating jobs.
From Radio America, it's Neil Asbury's Made in America, the show that explores American industry, large and small, and promotes American-made products everywhere. Put Neil Asbury's Made in America to work for you.
A very big welcome to you today. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. So, Rich, there is absolutely no doubt whatsoever that the Trump tax cuts has done an amazing job at growing our economy. And, each week we're talking about the growth of our economy and, the projections out there, 4% GDP, 4.5, 4.8, heading to 5, absolutely amazing. We talk about jobs. We talk about so many jobs that the unemployment rate is at a very historic low. If you're talking about African-American unemployment, Latino
the stats are spectacular.
Women unemployment.
Just spectacular.
It's amazing. Yeah. So
you're roaring right now.
So how much of that was because of the tax cuts?
Well, a lot of it because of the tax cuts. A lot of it's because of removing some regulations and moving in a different direction. So, long and the short of it is we have a much more business-friendly environment coming out of the administration than we've had for the preceding 8 years.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's perception, too. I mean, I know as an entrepreneur myself, if you're perceiving that things are favorable, you're going to go out there with a certain vigor, a renewed vigor, because, for 8 years under Obama as an entrepreneur, we were just keeping our heads down because, there was all kinds of bullets coming at us from that administration. And now all of a sudden, it's perceived, I believe, by the American entrepreneurial community, small business community, that we have a government that's actually supporting us.
Well, what's interesting, to your point, when we were doing the show during the Obama administration, I was actually reporting coming from websites that monitored the amount of jobs and where they were losing them in the economy. Every week, a list came out of companies that were letting people go because of the economy. Those sites don't exist right now because we're not losing jobs, we're gaining jobs. So you're right, it's perception's reality. Marshall McLuhan taught me that when I was in college.
Well, very good.
There it is.
So let's bring on our first guest, Andy Roth from the Club for Growth, to talk about tax cuts and are there more coming? Andy, welcome to Made in America.
Hi, thanks for having me, guys.
So, the tax cuts, I think they've done pretty good. I mean, what do you think? The ones that's existing right now.
Yeah, no, I think everything you said is correct. As soon as the election was over, the stock market immediately took off. And that's because of the perception idea that you were talking about the confidence that was reborn in among business owners, small business owners, consumers, everybody. And when you combine that with actual pro-growth legislation like tax cuts and deregulation, that's like rocket fuel to the economy, and that's exactly what we're getting.
So now we see, Andy, our good friend Congressman Kevin Brady talking about some more tax cuts and, coming up with a new vote about more tax cuts.
Tax cuts 2.0. That's what they're calling it.
That's right. And, just in time for the November midterm elections, you have President Trump saying the other day that the Democrats wish that they voted for their tax cuts. The Republicans seem to think that this is a winning strategy, but is it?
Yeah, in fact, I love everything about this. In fact, there's that old chestnut that says, good policy is good politics. And I think that's exactly right. Right before the elections in September, we're going to have a vote on the tax cuts 2.0. And it's going to make all the individual tax cuts permanent. It's going to perhaps lower the corporate tax rate even further than it is now. There's one thing that I absolutely love. In fact, my mouth waters just talking about it, which is indexing capital gains to inflation, which is extremely pro-growth. And if Republicans are able to package those together in one or more bills and sell those to the American people, and then watch the Democrats oppose it, I think that's a wonderful recipe to solidify the gains in both chambers going forward. And then after the elections, perhaps make those policy issues permanent and codify them into law.
Which is great. I mean, that gives such a great talking point going forward that actually inures benefits to middle class America and actually all strata of America, which really belies the fact that the Democrats again don't have a real message. Being how are you going to make America better? Well, I'm going to raise your taxes. I'm going to give away money. I'm going to give away whatever. We're going to
eliminate ICE.
We're not going to have immigration policy. We're going to let everything go to heck. That's what we're going to do. But we know better. So I don't think that's going to fly. I think you're 100% correct. I think this really sets up the Dems to even be more of a challenge for themselves.
The Democrats are really handcuffed by the radical left. That was first led by Bernie Sanders, but now is being passed. The torch is being passed to like Elizabeth Warren and others. And this is the sort of thing that, abolish ICE, single-payer health care, all of these things. And you're seeing those play out in Democrat primaries right now. And so, there's a lot of talk that the Republican Party is engaged in a civil war, and that's kind of true. But the Democrats, what's going really underreported is that they're in a huge meltdown right now. And if you guys remember back in the 1980s, there were Democrats like Dick Gephardt and others and Bill Bradley who led the charge to pass the Reagan tax cuts in 1986. And you don't even get one vote from them on the Trump tax cuts because the radical left won't allow them to. So they're really self-destructing right now. I think it's a remarkable story that isn't getting a lot of coverage.
You see, the interesting thing is, Neil, is that the blue dog Democrats were euthanized. I mean, that's a subplot. Right,
they're all Republicans.
We just talked about a couple of them, and they don't exist right now. And I think our guess is 100% correct. The Democrats are in such a bad state right now. They are so torn, so pulled to the left. I mean, look at the young lady, and I use those words on purpose, in Queens, who just, she's probably going to wind up getting in Congress. She's like basically unopposed. And she has no idea what she's talking about. No idea what she's talking about. And so the new Democrat is the new Democrat socialist. The new Democrat socialist is, big trouble. And what do you think about that? Do you think that is an epitome of what you're talking about, having this young lady like that trying to get into Congress who really doesn't understand too much?
No, you're exactly right. I mean, you just provided a manifestation or a real-world example of what I was talking about. The Blue Dogs, they used to exist. The last time I remember them having a healthy membership was in 2006, 2007. And then when Obama and Pelosi forced them to vote for Obamacare, that's when they got absolutely just destroyed in the 2010 elections, and they just got wiped off the planet.
Incredible. But, I'm referring now, Andy, to a piece that's in Reuters, and it's talking about Republicans target elections with more deficit-boosting tax cuts. They're focused on a deficit. And this article goes on to say that the approval of the first round of tax cuts sort of nationwide is about 36%. Of Americans actually approve. And they're saying, and they're going on to say, and this is a very left-leaning article, and it's written from a left-leaning perspective, that in many districts, districts where Republicans hold the seat, where there are a large demographic of Democrats or independents, that these tax cuts are not going to be positive. And that actually the Democrats are actually thinking they're going to pick up seats because of the tax cuts, not lose seats. What do you say about that?
Well, a couple of things. One is the Republican Party are the worst messengers in modern day politics.
Amen to that, brother.
They don't know how to sell good policy, but. The nice thing is that the economy is going so well and it's going so strong The other adage that I'll remind everybody of is that you vote with your pocketbook. And when you've got a job and when the economy is going strong and you can put food on your dinner table for your kids, that leads to good results politically. And so I think the Democrats are absolutely wrong. I don't want to digress too far, but the one thing I am worried about is that if these tariffs start harming the economy, I do worry that the Democrats may be able to take advantage of the November elections. But if we can keep the economy strong, if we can make the issue about tax cuts 2.0 in September and a few other things, I think Republicans will have a great November.
Hey, Andy, excellent commentary. We've been listening to Andy Roth from the Club for Growth. He's right on target. We really appreciate you coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Coming up, Dr. Rothman and I'm going to have some more thoughts about what went on this week and what does that mean to your jobs.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. Rich, I mean, there's just so much going on in the country today that we do have midterms coming up, you know, and you're not hearing about it as much as I think we normally would, but there's just so much noise coming from everywhere. It's hard to focus, but I'm sure once we get into September and the midterms, I mean, it's going to be game on. You know, this is really big. And, you know, President Trump has done a lot of things, and he's done things that have been controversial to some, and others are applauding. But something that you cannot deny is that the economy is just going gangbusters. I don't know if ever a political party has ever lost office with its economy going so well. I mean, is this the time that changes? I mean, look at President H.W. Bush. You know, in 1988, you know, he succeeded. Ronald Reagan did great. The first Gulf War came up. You know, the coalition of the willing. How many countries was in that? But it was amazing what he put together.
It was some of the best television I ever saw.
It was great, and you felt really proud because here you had all of these Arab nations supporting the United States.
Everybody liked us. They're going, we're going to save the Middle East. Let's go, guys. Let's do it. And it was I'm telling you, even CNN reported some honesty in those days.
Within a year of the election, I mean, the guy had 80%. Oh, and don't forget that the Soviet Union and the wall and everything came down. I mean, what an incredible presidency.
Right.
1 year out, the guy's got 80% approval ratings. I mean, who has 80% approval ratings? And he lost the election because of the economy. It didn't matter, you know, all of these great international successes that President Bush had, and some of them were handed to him. Some of them he worked really hard for. But, hey, look, you make your own luck. And this guy did an amazing job for the country. But yet he was voted out of office. So the economy, and it was, remember, Bill Clinton or, you know, James Carville, actually. It's the economy, stupid. It's the economy, stupid.
That helped him win.
That did. And
that summarized it.
And that, together with Ross Perot, obviously being a third-party candidate, which siphoned up off, you know, all the Bush votes and allowed Bill Clinton the path to the White House. And you know, he won. And, you know, he won fair and square in the Electoral College, and he was the president. But that just shows you, Rich, how powerful the economy is when it's not working and how powerful it is when it is working. You know, he lost at this glorious moment because the Americans did not feel the economy was working for them. Now, here we got a situation where the world is in all of this disarray and this tumultuous situation that we're finding every day that we wake up and we read the news, but yet the economy is going gangbusters. So, Rich, how does that play? How does that play in November in the midterms?
Well, see, the only this is how it plays, and you can see it right now in the craziness, the hysteria that we're seeing on the left. A very focused effort to the word they use is resist, as if we're back in 1917. We're going up against the Tsar, and we're a bunch of Bolsheviks running around. This is like really sick. They are going to make the economy not the issue. They're going to make the morality or immorality or the treasonousness or the stupidity or the scariness of the Trump administration, the core subject matter. And then somehow, I mean, when you think about it, Neil, I mean, if in fact that's the case, and why did a social democrat get elected in the primary in Queens? A know-nothing, seriously, know-nothing social democrat gets overrules, does incredibly well against a mainstream Democrat's been there for many years, who was supposed to be the next Speaker of the House. Next Speaker of the House, should they get control, and yet this person gets it. So I don't even know what they need to do, Neil, is not make it the economy. So they get everyone talking about everything but the economy. And they belittle the economy. Well, you know, the tax cuts are nice, but they're not good for the average American. They're really good for corporate. So they push that corporate, which then fits into the agenda for socialism. We're going to take it over. Let's go back to Bush for a second in his first, well, his only presidency, the first one. Remember what he said, read my lips, no new taxes? Yeah. And then what happened after that?
Yeah.
He raised
the taxes.
Right. That didn't help.
That was
a baddie. That didn't help at all. That didn't help at all.
But look at a couple of these headlines. We've got just a couple of minutes to kind of emphasize what you just said. Jobless claims sink to 48-year low.
Amazing.
48-year low. Larry Kudlow, good friend of the show, growth could top 4% as no recession in sight. You know, so I mean, those are amazing things. And you got President. President
that's
Trump,
a pretty good message.
Yeah, President Trump saying today, well, about those Fed hiking rates, you know, I'm not really very much in favor of that. You know, and of course,
got him in trouble.
The left,
anything
says, well, hey,
got
look,
him in trouble.
You know, no president has ever said that, and you know, you're supposed to leave him alone, and all of this.
Not exactly true. 2 presidents in history said it. I learned that today driving up here. It was Johnson and Nixon. Also made commentary about the Feds when they were doing some rate raises. Just saying. But, you know, here's my point there is that we have a president that is very, very engaged in the economy. You know, whether you like it or not, I mean, he's quarterbacking this thing. He's quarterbacking it, and he's calling the shots. Hey, listen, at least he's not chasing after ambulances and fire trucks like the Democrat Fiorello LaGuardia did in New York City. Now, that was a crazy. You know, I think this president's radically better than one of the best guys in the Democratic Party. Just saying again, Neil.
Okay, well, hey, look, Rich, you know, one of the problems is we got a labor shortage. We actually got a labor shortage. So how are we going to fix the labor shortage? That's a problem. Can that derail this incredible growth that we have in our economy? All of these jobs that we're creating, will we stop losing jobs because we don't have the labor? I mean, companies from overseas are coming here. They're investing. American entrepreneurs, they want to hire people. They can't hire people. They can't find them. Our next guest, Todd Hitt, CEO of Kiddar Capital, says that he has a solution for fixing our labor shortage. You don't want to miss this.
Made in America.
Sharply higher at the open, stocks continued to perform well over the course of the day Tuesday.
And I think that bodes well here over the next couple of years for having bigger demands coming to this country.
Now, more of Neil Asbury's Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. So, Rich, if we're going to create all these jobs, we got to have people to fill them. And, you know, we've talked a lot about labor force participation.
Yep, big subject.
Mm-hmm. That, you know, we've actually got more Americans sitting on the sidelines that you would expect in an economy that's roaring along as well as it is right now, that there would be more people working in the workforce than there is. I think we had a guest on recently who said that, you know, we're about 63% of labor force participation, able-bodied Americans, you know, from age 18 to 65, and we should really be at about 67, 68%. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but that translates into millions of people.
Oh, no, serious numbers.
And we're talking about people who could be really participating in contributing to society in you know, their dignity and, you know, how they view themselves and their families and their, you know, the community, country participating, paying taxes. It's a huge asset that this country just is not tapping into.
100% correct. And it is a major problem. We just discussed it again last week with Steve Camarata, we were talking about it, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. Is it a real crisis? I mean, we discussed that a little bit. What do we do about it? And as a matter of fact, Ivanka Trump had a piece in the Wall Street Journal that she wrote called "Training for the Jobs of Tomorrow," where she's explaining that we really need to have a better program, and she has some ideas to train people better to join the workforce in areas that we need the employees. And people should take a look at that. Today's Wall Street Journal, it's out there. And so I'm looking forward to this conversation. This is vital.
So here's a novel idea. Maybe we should try to transplant or move some of the folks that are in communities that don't have jobs to the communities that do. Very, very interesting approach. We're very pleased to have on with us right now Todd Hitt, who is the CEO of Kiddar Capital. He's an American businessman. He's got investments and assets in real estate, privately held growth companies, intellectual property. He helps companies raise debt. He's a venture capitalist. He's invested in hospitality. And he's a great asset here. He's also a writer. He just published a piece that got our attention in Real Clear Policy. We love Real Clear Politics. To solve the labor shortage, focus on mobility. A very interesting idea. Todd, welcome to Made in America.
Great to be here with you guys.
So, hey, look, I love the piece. I love what you said, and I wasn't really thinking about that. And Rich and I have done a lot of shows and talking about this workforce that we have, the shadow workforce that should be out there participating and doing great things, but yet they're not. And you think with all these jobs, they'd be out there. But you're saying that there's communities that has a lot of people unemployed, but they can't get to the communities where the employment is. So tell us about this piece and your idea and what you wrote in Real Clear Policy.
Well, I think that really is the root of the problem. I mean, we have certainly a confluence of events that have sort of come together that have presented us with this conundrum that we have right now. We have, pockets throughout the country where literally the workforce is stuck, where there are really no jobs. And coming out of the financial crisis, they just sort of hurtled into these spots and stayed there because they couldn't find their way out. There's a number of reasons they can't find their way out. One is whatever real estate they may own, they can't get out from under it. They're in areas where, real estate's worth less than when they bought their house, in 2005. So while on the coast in some very affluent areas, our real estate's worth far more than it was coming out of the financial crisis, theirs isn't. So the idea of selling their home and finding the next job, is just not there. So the DNA that we have here in the United States is to move. I mean, 25% of us were moving every year. That's 1 in 4 people moving every year for greener pastures 30 years ago. Now we're down to 11%. I mean, you guys know better than I that, we all have it in our DNA to move. That's why we're here. All of us in this country came from somewhere. Somebody moved for greener pastures, so it's what we do. So to me, it's alarming that mobility rate has dropped so drastically, over 50%, over a 30-year period. And in fact, even a more precipitous drop since the financial crisis.
I think you really hit on something that's amazingly unique to America, and that we are very transient. We're very nomadic, and we do travel and we do function in other areas. We don't mind picking up and leaving. That's the exceptionalism of American DNA. And for it to go down to 11% from what it was what you said it was 30-some-odd% prior to that to me is somewhat alarming. I mean, maybe because the infrastructure is so bad, maybe they're afraid to get on the bridges. But that's a very, very concerning number.
I think they can't get out. I mean, they get stuck where they are. Maybe they have parents in the area helping watch their kids. Maybe they're on, sort of a non-transferable, state welfare program that, if they move, they can't get on a new one. They can't even really figure out how to find that next job. Think about what a job search is like. You're going through, career.com and, monster.com, and it's laborious to try and find a job. Meanwhile, they probably, in some cases, can't find work, can't get motivated to go find it. They can't pay their bills. They're literally stuck where they are. And so we need a tax credit program that incentivizes corporate America to get these people out of where they are so they can actually start believing in the American dream again. Because to me, I tie mobility to our DNA, and our DNA is driven by the American dream, that belief that, your children can do better than you, and their children can do better than they did. That's really at the center of the American dream. So from my perspective, when people stop believing in that, they end up on the wall of despair, and the wall of despair leads to an opioid epidemic. It leads to people precipitously dropping out of the workforce, and you made the point on the intro, from, really what was 69%, years ago to 67, and now down to 63 and 64, depending upon which, number you agree with. So to me, that's an issue. I mean, and now we've got an economy that is, well, all of Wall Street, and I'm a capitalist and I'm a finance guy, so, I get Wall Street. I love Wall Street. But all of Wall Street's busy talking about the things that can tip the economy. And really here on Main Street, when I look at it sort of across the 12 cities that we're active in, it's Main Street that's going to tip the economy. It's a labor shortage that's going to tip the economy. It's businesses not being able to take on work because they don't have the workers. They can't expand. It's businesses suffering from wage inflation, not wage growth, not, hey, I want to pay that guy more because we're doing better. It's wage inflation. I have to pay. There's a difference between the two, I have to pay them more just to get them in here to do something, right? So you really suffer. The whole economy suffers because of it ultimately.
Hey, Todd, it's very, very, very fascinating. We're going to have to get you back. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but we could have gone on forever on this point. We really appreciate your passion. We really appreciate what you're doing, helping entrepreneurs get money, investing in businesses. It's exactly the American dream, and it's creates so many other dreams for others. We really appreciate all the hard stuff that you do.
Thanks for the time, guys. Happy to come back anytime.
Coming up, we have Clark Packard on, who's at the Trade Policy Council at the R Street Institute. Going to talk about Orrin Hatch and Bob Corker, two very, very important senators trying to rein in the Trump tariffs. Let's see what that's about.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. Rich, it's a very important thing. I mean, we hear about all these job numbers, but there are still a lot of people sitting out of this economy. And interesting commentary from Todd that, look, we have a lot of people out there, but, they need to be mobile. They need to be mobile. They need to go where the jobs are. A very good thought. Let me tell you, I'm sure for a lot of people out there who are unemployed and they're in a community that's not creating jobs, you got the opioid problem. And I know that, from places in like Appalachia and so on, it's crazy what's going on there. You see all this economy booming, but in other parts of our country, it's still, it's hopelessness. Can we get them mobile? Can we move them? And to places where there's jobs that can't be fulfilled. Very, very fascinating idea. Hey, Rich, tariffs. We're talking a lot about tariffs. I just brought a container in today, and it was my first container that got hit with the tariffs. So this is real for me. This is real money. This is not play money. This is the real deal. And, I'm concerned. Where's this going to go? You play by the rules, and now the rules all of a sudden change. Are they changing for the better or not for the better? I'm not so sure right now. I understand what the president's trying to do. He's trying to bring people to the table. But, there are going to be a lot of good people that's going to get hurt by this. We got two senators. Senator Hatch, very powerful senator. Senator Corker, another very powerful senator, who's trying to rein President Trump in on his tariffs. Now, these are both Republicans. They've been free traders all their life. They've been against tariffs all their life, and they're standing up to the tariffs. Let's bring on Clark Packard, who's at the Trade Policy Council at the R Street Institute. Clark, welcome to Made in America.
Thanks for having me on.
So, Newsmax, I write for Newsmax. I'm glad to see Newsmax reporting on this, that Senator Hatch, who's been very, very pro-Trump, and you got Senator Corker, who has been very anti-Trump.
Yeah.
So you got
sweetheart.
You got one of each here. You got one of each who's saying, hey, look, we got to rein this president on tariffs. We got to stop this. The Senate's got to step in. And after all, it is Congress that is responsible for all commerce and not the president. And the president now is, through some law, he's now saying because of national security, I can do all these things. So tell us what's going on with this. Are they going to have any chance of success of actually doing anything with this, or is this grandstanding?
Well, I think that remains to be seen. I think the likelihood of action from the Congress, particularly in the Senate, will increase as more and more industries and more folks are caught up in this sort of tit-for-tat trade war that it looks like we're on the front lines of that starting. But, I think to take this a step back, the president's trade agenda, particularly with respect to the steel and aluminum tariffs, as well as the auto tariffs, under the guise of national security, are deeply unpopular with congressional Republicans. And I think that they are sort of spinning their wheels trying to figure out how best to check the president. But I would anticipate some of this getting some sort of growing level of support as the trade war continues and kind of goes back and forth in the United States and various countries.
Well, it's interesting. There's another piece in Newsmax, now that you mentioned it, saying opposition grows against Trump's auto tariff plan. And lead graph says all but one of the 45 scheduled witnesses expected to testify Thursday at a day-long Commerce Department hearing will oppose President Donald Trump's auto tariff plans. So that's telling you something.
Well, will it
Not
make any
very
difference?
Popular.
Well, will it make any difference?
Well, we're gonna wait.
Clark,
wait a minute, Clark. Give us some clarity on this.
I wish I had some clarity. Yeah, I did see that the overwhelming majority, I didn't know the exact figure, but I did see the overwhelming majority of people speaking at the Commerce hearing today would be opposed to the tariffs. I can't give you anything concrete about whether or not this will, some sort of formal rebuke will happen with respect to the president's trade policy authorities. What I would say, though, is that Congress last week passed a non-binding resolution, I guess the Senate did, basically saying, look, if you are going to continue to try to impose tariffs under the guise of national security, we want a say in that. Now, that motion passed 89-11, but it didn't have teeth to it. It was just a non-binding sort of sense of the Senate. Again, as more and more industries get caught up in this and the ripple effects throughout the economy become more apparent, I think it's more likely that Congress will step in and take a formal action. But at this point, it seems like they're just kind of spinning their wheels.
Yeah, very interesting, very fascinating. This story is going to unfold over the next several weeks and months. I just hope there's a happy ending here soon. We've been talking with Clark Packard from the R Street Institute about what's going to go on with these tariffs. Clark, thanks for coming on the show.
Yep, not a problem. Thanks for having me.
Coming up, Dr. Roth and I are going to have some final thoughts for the day.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Ruff. And Rich, man, it just flew by. Some very, very fascinating discussions. But this thing about employment and getting people into the workforce and where are the jobs and how do we get the folks that are sitting on the sidelines? And look, this is not a few. This is literally millions that could become productive in doing things that make themselves feel good, make their families feel good, give a sense of pride, that dignity that comes with being productive, not least of which is paying taxes. And these taxes ultimately pay for all of these beautiful things we want in our country, right? The roads, the bridges, the universities, the schools, the ports, all of these things are because Americans are working and they're paying taxes. That's the way the world goes around. At least that's the way that America has been built into this incredible country. Now, of course, there's a large group of Americans out there that's out there chanting and saying we need to become a socialist country and socialism and up with socialism and down with capitalism. But that's for another day. That's another story. But I got to tell you, we got to get these folks engaged because the good they can do for themselves, their families, the communities, and the country is just absolutely amazing. We got to figure this out.
Well, so and I agree with you. I think work is good, and it does make you feel good. I mean, languishing, doing nothing, really it destroys your soul.
It's depressing.
Well, it also produces crime and all sorts of opiate problems, drug problems, and so forth. But, now that you said that, I do find it unique and unusual that the Democrats are out there now again. And one of the platforms that they're going to have, and we were discussing on the show, well, what are the Democrats going to say? Is it going to be the economy, whatever? And this is how they're going to get to the economy. We're going to guarantee you a base flat income every month. We're going to give you $500 a month. Chicago is going to try that next year. $500 a month for God knows how many people.
Well, where's the money coming from?
Well, it's going to come from, who the heck knows where it's going to get? It's going to come from you and me. It's going to come from the people who live there. It's going to come from there. They're going to raise taxes. What do you think they're going to do with it? Illinois is already in a bad way. Chicago's is in a horrible way. California wants to try this. Oregon wants to try this.
Well, just give everybody $500 a month?
You're going to give everyone $500 a month. Guarantee you can get this because we want you to feel good. Now, let me ask you that. President Obama, I use that word loosely because I don't like the man very much, but President Obama was out speaking again. There's a piece in the Richmond.com website from the Richmond newspaper, the daily newspaper in Richmond, Virginia, says, and the piece actually is called, editorial Barack Obama, still speaking, still clueless. And he's talking about, we really need dignity. We shouldn't be separating people, although he was a great separator. And by the way, everybody should work. And by the way, you should be voting for Democrats because they want to give a base $500 to everybody. And it's the right thing to do because it'll provide dignity to them when they know they have $500 coming. Really? Boy, does he miss the boat. Boy, is he clueless. Because if that worked, Neil, then why didn't the war on poverty work after $22.3 trillion? It didn't work because you're right, 100% correct. Money's not the answer. A job is the answer. That's what we need to go on. So I find it astounding that this is a basis. People actually, we're debating whether it's a good idea to give money away to everybody. Are you kidding me? My father cut me off with an allowance after a while. It's not a great idea. You got to get out and do something. So let's see where that one goes.
How does that play in an election?
Well, it plays in the election because a lot of the masses will say, well, wait a minute. You're talking, let me see if I add this up now. And they get their little calculator out from, whatever. I don't know where they stole it. And they get the calculator. Well, they don't have a job. So they get they went to Office Depot and they just put it in their shirt and walked out. And they figure, let me think. $500 a month for free. Then I get my medicine and health for free. Then I get my housing. It's only right for free. And then I get my Obama phone. Remember those days, Neil? I get my phone for free. And I get food for free. Wow, this is not a bad deal. The heck with the Republicans. I'm going for the Democrats. Monty Hall. I'm taking door number 3.
Oh, my goodness.
That's where it goes, buddy.
Yeah, but I mean, you might not, this whole thing with the socialism, and I mean, Democrat Party becoming the Socialist Party, it's true. I mean, we talked about blue dog Democrats. There are no conservative Democrats anymore.
No, the only blue dogs, Neil, that exist right now are Rodriguez paintings being sold in the French Quarter in New Orleans.
You know why and we got to wrap, but you know why it's the blue dogs is because the liberals are choking them to death, so they turn blue. That's why they're the blue dogs. Anyway, Rich, we're out of time. But we're going to be back again next week for another adventure of Made in America, where we never stop fighting for your jobs.